The conference room smelled like disappointment and cheap coffee. I sat across from HR Director Janet Mills and my direct supervisor, Tom Bradley, trying to keep my expression neutral as they delivered the news I'd been expecting but hoping against. "Veronica, you've been an exceptional analyst here at Meridian Consulting," Janet began, her voice dripping with manufactured sympathy. "Your work on the Hastings account alone saved us nearly $3 million in inefficiencies." "However," Tom jumped in, unable to meet my eyes, "the senior management position has been filled internally by Tyler Morrison." Tyler Morrison, 22 years old, fresh out of Columbia with a business degree his uncle probably bought. He'd been with the company exactly 6 weeks. "I see," I said calmly, though my nails dug into my palms under the table. "And his qualifications?" Janet shifted uncomfortably. "Tyler brings fresh perspectives and innovative ideas that align with our company's new direction." Fresh perspectives. Like how to use LinkedIn and what craft beer was trending. I'd heard him explain blockchain to a client last week, incorrectly. "I've been here 8 years, I said slowly. "I've managed 16 major accounts, brought in $47 million in revenue, and created the efficiency framework your entire operations department uses. What innovative ideas outweigh that?" Tom finally looked up. "Look, Veronica, it's nothing personal. Tyler has an MBA from Columbia Dash. I have an MBA from Wharton. He has connections in the industry Dash. His uncle is the CEO." Silence fell like a lead curtain. Janet's smile became strained. "That's a very serious insinuation," she said. "Our hiring practices are completely merit-based." I almost laughed. Tyler had asked me last week what ROI stood for. But I kept my face neutral, professional. 8 years of practice. "Of course," I said. "When does Tyler start in the new position?" "Monday," Tom said, looking relieved at my apparent acceptance. "We hope you'll help with the transition. Your experience will be invaluable in getting him up to speed. Training my replacement." The final insult wrapped in corporate speak. "I'll need the weekend to prepare transition documents," I said, standing. "If that's all." They exchanged glances, probably surprised by my lack of protest. Other employees had cried, shouted, threatened to quit when passed over. But I wasn't other employees. "That's very professional of you, Veronica," Janet said. "For what it's worth, there will be other opportunities. Your time will come." "My time." I smiled tightly and left the conference room, walking past the cubicles where my colleagues avoided eye contact. Word had already spread. Poor Veronica, passed over again. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I made it to my office, a cramped space I'd occupied for 3 years, despite promises of upgrades, and closed the door. Then I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. Not the company laptop. My personal one. Most people at Meridian knew me as Veronica Chun, a senior analyst who handled mid-size accounts and never made waves. What they didn't know was that I was also V. Chun, founder and sole proprietor of Chun Holdings LLC, the umbrella company for 17 different businesses I'd built over the last 6 years. It had started small. A side consulting gig that grew. Then another. I'd created different entities for legal and tax purposes, each with its own EIN, its own contracts, its own carefully maintained corporate veil. Together, they represented Meridian's largest client portfolio. The beauty was in the structure. Each company appeared independent: Richmond Analytics, Bauer Tech Solutions, Fairweather Innovations, and 14 others. Different addresses, thank you, virtual offices. Different points of contact. Me, using various emails and voice modulation software for phone calls. Different industries and needs. But all of them funneled through Meridian Consulting. All of them paid their invoices on time. All of them renewed their contracts without negotiation. Together, they accounted for 72% of Meridian's annual revenue. I pulled up my master spreadsheet and smiled. Tomorrow was Friday. Invoices were due. Contracts were up for renewal on 7 of the accounts. Perfect timing. That evening, I worked late. Not on transition documents, on termination letters. Each one carefully crafted, legally bulletproof, citing various breaches of contract that I'd overlooked for years. Late deliverables here, subpar quality there, failure to meet SLA requirements that I'd never enforced because, well, I was managing both sides. At 11:47 p.m., I scheduled 17 emails to send at 9 a.m. sharp. Then I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and slept better than I had in months. Friday morning arrived with the kind of beautiful chaos I'd orchestrated but never witnessed firsthand. I came in early, made my usual cup of tea, and settled at my desk to watch the show. At 9:03, Tom burst into my office without knocking. "Veronica, what the hell is this?" He waved a printout, one of my termination letters. "Richmond Analytics is canceling? They're our third biggest client." "Oh!" I pulled up the account on my screen. "That's unfortunate. What reason did they give?" "Breach of contract. Consistent failure to meet deliverables." "But that's impossible. You manage that account. You've never mentioned any issues." I tilted my head. "I manage the relationship, Tom. The deliverables come from Tyler's team, don't they?" "Well, what will be Tyler's team?" His face paled. "But you've always handled the escalations, smoothed things over." "Above my pay grade now, I'm afraid." "That sounds like a senior management issue." His phone rang. He answered, his face growing paler with each word. "What do you mean Bauer Tech is pulling out? And Fairweather?" He did quick math. "That's $12 million in annual revenue." More people appeared at my door. Janet from HR, Dave from accounting. Even Tyler, looking confused and slightly hungover. "Veronica," Janet said carefully, "we're experiencing an unusual situation. Multiple clients are terminating their contracts, all citing similar issues. You manage these accounts. What's happening?" I leaned back in my chair. "Market correction? Competitor poaching? Hard to say. Though I did warn in my Q3 report that client satisfaction scores were dropping. But that report was marked non-priority by senior management." Dave's phone buzzed constantly. He glanced at it, color draining from his face. 17 terminations. He staggered. "That's 72% of our revenue. We'll have to close the Boston office. Hell, we'll have to close most of our offices." Tyler finally spoke up. "I don't understand. Why would they all leave on the same day?" I looked at him with something like pity. "Tyler, what would you do if your consulting firm consistently failed to deliver, then promoted someone's nephew over the person who'd been holding everything together?" That's defamation." Janet sputtered. "You can't imply we're nepotistic." "I'm not implying anything. I'm explaining market dynamics to Tyler. Consider it training for his new role." Tom's phone rang again. He answered, and I could hear CEO Morrison's voice screaming from across the room. Tom held the phone away from his ear. "He wants to see all of us. Now." The procession to the executive floor was like a funeral march. I brought my tea and sipped it calmly while everyone else sweated through their shirts. CEO Robert Morrison sat behind his massive desk, face red with rage or panic or both. Tyler stood in the corner, probably wishing he'd stayed at his uncle's Hampton's house one more week. "Someone explained to me," Morrison said with deadly calm, "how we lost 72% of our revenue in one morning." Everyone looked at me. I smiled. "Market forces are unpredictable," I offered. "Cut the shit, Chin." Morrison's calm shattered. "These clients all cite the same issues. Breaches we've apparently ignored for years. They all terminated within minutes of each other. This is coordinated." "That does seem unlikely," I agreed. "Unless, of course, they were all connected somehow. But that would be a massive conflict of interest, wouldn't it? Having connected companies all funnel through one consulting firm? We'd have to disclose that in our SEC filings." Morrison's eyes widened. He was starting to understand. "Pull up the client list," he barked at Dave. "Full corporate structures. Now." Dave's fingers flew over his tablet. The more he searched, the more his face resembled cottage cheese. They're all registered to different addresses. Different tax IDs. But the filing patterns. He looked up slowly. They were all created within the same 18-month period. All filed in Delaware. All using the same registered agent service. "Veronica," Morrison said softly, dangerously. "What did you do?" I set down my teacup. "I built a business. Several, actually. When I realized my growth here was capped, passed over for promotion 4 times, paid 60% of market rate, told repeatedly to wait my turn, I created my own opportunities." "You created shell companies to funnel money through our firm?" Janet looked scandalized. "I created legitimate businesses that needed consulting services. I chose Meridian because I believed in the work we did. I managed those accounts impeccably, never missing a payment, never creating problems. I thought eventually you'd recognize the value I brought." I stood, smoothing my skirt. "Instead, you promoted Tyler. So those businesses, my businesses, are taking their consulting needs elsewhere." "This is fraud," Morrison shouted. "I'll sue you into oblivion." "For what?" I asked calmly. Creating successful companies? Choosing which consulting firm to hire? There's no non-compete in my contract, I checked. No conflict of interest clause that covers external business ownership. I've done nothing illegal. You've destroyed this company. No, I corrected. You destroyed this company when you decided nepotism mattered more than merit. When you paid me $95,000 to manage accounts worth $47 million. When you promoted a boy who can't spell analytics over someone who built your entire efficiency framework. Tyler finally found his voice. Aunt Janet, Uncle Bob, I didn't know dash. Shut up, Tyler, Morrison snapped. Then to me, what do you want? Money. The promotion? Name your price. I laughed. Actually laughed. The promotion? You want me to work under Tyler after this? Help him run the smoking remains of your company. Senior partner, he said desperately. Full equity. Name on the door. Meridian Consulting? I pretended to consider it. Tempting. But no. I've already registered my new firm. Chin Strategic Solutions. My clients, all 17 of them, have already signed with me. Better rates, better service, better leadership. We'll match whatever you're charging them, Tom said. We'll beat it. It's not about the money, I said, heading for the door. It's about respect, value, recognition, things you can't suddenly discover when your revenue disappears. You planned this, Janet accused. You've been planning this for years. I paused at the door. I planned for success. You planned for nepotism. We both got what we planned for. Veronica, wait. Morrison's voice cracked. Please. We can work this out. 30% raise. 40. Senior partner. Just please. I turned back one last time. You know what's funny? Last week, if you'd given me the promotion I'd earned, I would have shut down those companies. Transferred everything to Meridian properly. Signed non-competes. Devoted my career to building this place. I looked at Tyler, who seemed to be trying to disappear into the wall. Instead, you chose him. So now he gets to oversee the layoffs. Explain to shareholders how the company lost 3/4 of its revenue overnight. Put that innovation to work. The elevator ride down felt like freedom. My personal belongings were already in my car. I'd been slowly moving them out for weeks. All that remained was to turn in my keycard and laptop. Sandra at reception looked at me with wide eyes. The whole building knew something massive was happening. Phones were ringing nonstop. People were crying in the bathrooms. Good luck, Sandra, I said, sliding my keycard across the desk. You might want to update your resume. Outside, the sun was shining. My phone had 18 missed calls from Morrison, 32 from Tom, and a series of increasingly frantic texts from Tyler asking what ROI stood for because he needed to explain it to panicking investors. I blocked all their numbers and drove to my new office. Not a cramped cube with flickering lights, but a corner suite in a building I'd bought through one of my companies last year. The renovation was complete, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, and a view of the city I'd conquered one shell company at a time. My assistant, hired away from Meridian with a 70% raise, had already set up the space. Client files transferred. New business cards printed. Everything ready for Chin Strategic Solutions to officially launch Monday. Congratulations, Miss Chin, she said, handing me a glass of champagne. How does it feel to be CEO? I looked out at the city, at the Meridian building visible in the distance. By now, Morrison would be calling emergency board meetings. Janet would be calculating how many people they'd have to fire. Tom would be updating his LinkedIn. And Tyler would be learning what ROI stood for. It feels, I said, raising my glass, like recognition. That weekend, the business press had a field day. Meridian Consulting loses 72% of revenue in single day. Mass exodus leaves consulting giant reeling. CEO Morrison steps down amid client crisis. Monday morning, I arrived at my new office to find 17 flower arrangements from my clients, all with variations of the same message. Thank you for your continued excellent service. By noon, I'd received inquiries from 6 new potential clients, all referencing Meridian's implosion. By evening, I'd hired 3 senior consultants, all formerly from Meridian, all women who'd been passed over for promotions in favor of someone's nephew or golf buddy. A month later, Meridian filed for bankruptcy. The building sold to a real estate developer. One of my shell companies bought it for 40 cents on the dollar. I kept Tyler's office intact as a reminder. Sometimes I ate lunch there, looking at the wall where he'd hung his Columbia diploma. The same wall where I now kept my business licenses. All 17 of them. Janet Mills applied for a job at Chin Strategic. I hired her as a junior HR coordinator. She needed the health insurance, and I believed in second chances. She was excellent at filing, and she never mentioned the word nepotism again. Tom Bradley became a freelance consultant. I threw him some overflow work occasionally. He always delivered on time, grateful for the opportunity. Tyler Morrison moved back to the Hamptons. Last I heard, he was teaching tennis at the country club and still asking people what ROI meant. And me? I run one of the fastest growing consulting firms on the East Coast. We have a strict policy. Promotions based on merit, pay at 120% of market rate, and absolutely no nepotism. My office wall has one decoration, a framed printout of Morrison's email announcing Tyler's promotion. Below it, in elegant script, recognition comes in many forms. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success. 17 times over.